Hello everybody, I'm Tom Vassell, and welcome to Live Q&A on the Dice Tower. What we're doing here, and I'm still seeing a blank screen here on my screen here. So this is just a test because we're trying a new thing, so I guess it is working now. What I'm doing here is we're going to try to set this up so that you can see your comments on the screen. So if someone asks me a question, I can highlight that question and put it below so that's there while I'm answering questions. So if there's any kind of hijinks today, it's because we're testing a new system. If you notice here, over the past couple weeks, we're trying all kinds of new stuff. One of the things about Dice Tower is we're always striving to be better. So Roy, if you watch our live play that we did on Friday, we got new cameras installed and stuff, and I'm really excited about it. Well, this is another thing that we're going to be doing. So if this works well, we'll be using this for Q&A in the future, just so you can see a comment there. So for example, Wayne Roberts says, "Good morning." I say, "Good morning" back. So if you have a question, I'll put them at the bottom. So I'll just answer questions. I don't answer every question, realize that, but now you know which questions I am answering down at the bottom. Okay, so any chance we will see a redo of the top 10 horror games? There's been quite a few released over the years. Yes, that's actually on the schedule, but it's August. I feel like I would do that in October. Alrighty. Why does learning on a typewriter matter? It doesn't really matter. It mattered at first because I thought that, and I still believe this, that because you had to manually hit the keys harder on a typewriter, that you were able to type faster when you got to something where you didn't have to hit them as hard. It just makes me, it's also like I learned to do this in the old way. It doesn't really matter. The voice is unsynced from the video. Well, we'll have to figure it out. A top 10 real world themed games? I don't know what that means actually. Isn't like 90, I shouldn't say 90%, but a lot of games are based in the real world, like every trading in the Mediterranean game. I didn't mention the Madara Kickstarter, my crowd surfing, it just missed it, I think. I'm not sure. Sometimes they just get missed for whatever reason. I liked the first game, so I'm sure that the next one will be good. Although I'll never get through the first campaign, so having more is like, whew. Any plans to continue the Miami Dice series? Interesting you asked that. A Miami Dice will go up tomorrow. I believe you'll see, how many do I got over there that are Miami Dice? Yeah, you're going to see 3 Miami Dice that are going to be coming up this week. And then next week, you're probably going to see 2 or 3 more. So yes, Miami Dices are scheduled. Brook City. Well, that's going to come up in a future review. So you'll see my review when that happens. I love that new camera software with Riley the other day. Well, that's the same software we're using right now to do this. It's called eCam, E-C-A-M-M, eCam Live. Make sure you spell correctly. The whole class will see your mistakes, yes. There you have it. Any new Dice Throne stuff getting added to the library? No, I don't think it's come out yet, right? They just finished the Kickstarter, so there's no way that there's more Dice Throne stuff going to be added to the library because I have Season 2. I got Season 1 out of the library to add the new sleeves to it, but until we get the new stuff, that's not going to be added to the library. Although there's tons of stuff being added to the library. The kids are working on it right now. The thing I'm most excited about is the new pitch car stuff. Edge of Darkness review coming. It is coming. I don't know when. Miami Dice, not going to happen. It's going to be me when it comes. What do you do for fun? I play board games and review them. Hey, it's also my job. I do other stuff for fun too. All right, here we go. Characters I want to see in Unmatched. So like public domain, we'll just go with public domain characters because I don't know what IPs Mondo has. Wyatt Earp, because I think there should be some kind of Western thing in the game. So in modern times, I'm trying to. I mean, I wouldn't put anyone who like is living now. That would feel weird. Maybe someone from like a hero from World War I or something. Old classic. I mean, stuff from fantasy. Buck Rogers, maybe? I don't know. I have not tried Fire in the Library yet. Are you done filming on the back patio? For now, we are. Florida heat and humidity does not do well for our cameras and wires and stuff, and so we were dragging everything out there to record each time. We rather have our studio set up. Real world is cops or nurses. Sure, but again, that's like saying if we did a top 10 real world games, then will we do a top 10 fantasy world games? It just seems too big of a genre. Before playing a new game, do I overly stress about getting every rule right to a point where I won't play a game until I'm absolutely sure you're playing it right? No. No. If I did that would make gaming too stressful. I mean, I try to get rules right, and what I do is when I play a game, I'm continually looking at the rules, which means halfway through sometimes I go, oh, we missed this. But I'm not going to worry about it too much, or I would never play any games. Can I play a My Little Pony game? Yes, I can. What one thing would you attribute to your success with connecting to a broader board game community? Well, I don't know. I think I was in the right place at the right time. That seems to be there. I've always thought that our consistency certainly helps. Like, I've tried to always have something going up. It doesn't always work, right? But if you'll notice, Dice Tower doesn't take many weeks off. I mean, we do take time off sometimes, but I try to work ahead and make sure that there's something going up all the time. People like consistency. Do I know more about the time stories? No, I do not. Let's see here. Oh, have I made Chris or Roy explore the creepy shed yet? I don't think I have. If there's a game you don't like, but for example Z likes, like Selenia, will you add it to the Dice Tower library, or does it have to be a majority liked game to get it added? No way. If anyone really likes the game and thinks it's a great game, it gets added to the library. So, for example, Selenia is in the library. I just put in diplomacy. I hate diplomacy. But I added it to the library because it should be in the library. Taburu testing Tuesday in the plans. Well, we don't have Taburu, so I don't think that one's going to happen anytime soon. How many employees is the Dice Tower up to now? Well, has to be added in like 2 weeks. In some of your live stuff, we see an awesome painting of you, Z, and Sam. A pity that's hidden out of view on your regular setup top 10s. It's a really cool painting. Yeah, it is. It's you know, we got cool stuff up all over the house, really, but it just can't be in there. We put it up more for ourselves, I guess, than for people in the screens. I don't want to have too many things in the background, but yeah, it's a pretty neat. It's actually painted on wood. How do you like the Reckoner books? Oh, I love them. They're fantastic. He is my favorite author, hands down. Brandon Sanderson. I like almost. I should say almost everything I've read. Everything of his that I've read so far, I like. What was my favorite food at Gen Con this year? Well, someone else paid for it. Oh, no, never mind. Yeah, well, someone else paid for me. I was at St. Elmo's, and they had butterscotch pie, and it was unbelievably good. Let's see here. Do you think you could play Funkoverse but with King of Tokyo characters? I don't understand that question. Play Funkoverse with King of Tokyo characters? I don't know how that would work. I should review toys on my channel. Well, we do. They're called board games. We're just a subset of toys. Have you seen or tried Tapestry yet? Is there a review embargo? Okay, once again, I keep telling people this. We do not have Tapestry at all. I think Jamie, he posted a thread somewhere where he listed all the reviewers that he sent it to. We're not on that list. I don't think there's anything bad behind it. Maybe he just wanted to help the other reviewers out. He knows that I have a huge backlog of reviews. I'll review it when it sends it to me. We'll get to it, but we don't have it now. So I'll tell you this, whenever there's a game we don't have, I don't worry about it too much. We have so many games to play. I'm looking over here at all these games that not only am I excited about trying out, or I've already played them and can't wait to review them. There's a lot. As soon as I'm done with this video, boom, I'm jumping right into a review. Will there be another Room Plus breakfast deal for Dice Tower West? I don't know, actually. That would be a question for the Dice Tower West team. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but once again, Dice Tower West registration opens later this month. What pops are behind me there? Well, we got Mr. Rogers and Korg, who is, I really like him from both the comics and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, although he's a very different character in both. And then World War Hulk. And there was a fourth one up there, but it must have fallen. Huh. Oh, no, never mind. The fourth one is right here. And this is the Mark Hamill Joker. Super Mario Maker 2 thoughts. Well, it's fun. You know what? I haven't actually made anything in it yet. So far, I've just been playing other people's levels. I did not like I finally figured out how to turn them off. I didn't like other people's comments on levels. That was super annoying. And I'm like looking for levels that are fun to play, but not super hard. And or everything in the kitchen sink put in the levels. That's there's like a lot. Like, look at this level. We added everything to it. Okay, great. But I just want to play fun levels. And there's been a few that I found. I look for very specific ones and just keep going through. Enough. How common are review embargoes in board game media? Not terribly uncommon. Here's what happens. The big companies do them. So, for example, I'm sure Stonemaier has an embargo on Tapestry right now. I'm trying to think, am I under any particular review embargoes for anything right now? I don't think so. It doesn't happen that often. Usually a big publisher will do it with a specific game. Like there's a game that I'm reviewing in the future that I know there will be a review embargo for. I think just that one. There's then sometimes every once in a while this tiny publisher will send me a game and be like, there's a review embargo on it. I'm like, oh, okay. It wasn't like I was going to break the embargo anyway, but I'm not probably going to review it for a while. So it wasn't in any hurry of me getting it out there. I don't know if this will become more and more of a standard thing. And I don't think so, because I think for every company that makes a review embargo, there'll be other people who want to get the stuff out as quickly as possible. How often do you play a two-player game with your wife where she just demolishes you? Often. I'm pretty sure I'm around 90%. You mean 90% getting destroyed? Nope. Is it over-obsessive to write a script before I teach a new game? That's up to you. Maybe your group likes that you do that and you really know the game well. Just got point salad and it's great, but why the big box? Well, the big box is there for one major reason: money. And I don't mean that because the company is trying to get all your money from you, but they want you to buy the game. and these little tiny boxes on a store shelf get passed over. They really do. Not only that, they're also a shoplifting hazard because they're easier for people to steal. But honestly, if it's, let's say, points out, which is just a deck of cards like this, if it was just in a box that just held a deck of cards and you put it on a shelf, a lot of people would just walk right by it. But because it's in a bigger box, they can have the art on it. You look at it, you go, it looks like an interesting game. And you can argue to the cows come home and say it should have been in a smaller box, but they want that shelf space. And shelf space matters. Visibility matters. Any tips on how to get a job playing and reviewing board games like you, besides starting my own channel? Oh, besides starting your own channel? Like getting someone to hire you? Like me or Shut Up Sit Down or Man vs. Meeple, I guess? I don't know. If I was going to get a reviewer, I would probably want someone who had a track record of reviewing games already, probably. You're going to have to start your own channel, I think, to get your word out there. On the 10 best series games, there was no mention of Lord of the Rings. Do you like the trilogy? What is the trilogy? Lord of the Rings? Do you mean War of the Ring, Battle of Five Armies? Is the other one the Middle-earth one? I'm not sure what the third game in the series is. I think you mean that one for Fantasy Flight for Middle-earth. I'm not sure. I don't know what the other game in the series would be. Could you redo some of the top 10s, but only with games released in the last 2 or 3 years just to see more of a variety? Probably not. First of all, it wouldn't be a top 10. And we do a top 10 games of the year anyway. So those games get talked about a lot. And we tend to trend newer anyway, I think. So I like that older games hit the list. I feel like my top 10s have a decent amount of variety in them, that you'll see different things. The top 10 list that we're doing this week, I know that there's going to be games that I'm putting on that list that I don't often talk about in other circumstances at all. So you'll see variety from me at least. Okay, so Gil says War of the Ring, Hunt for the Ring, and Journey of Middle-earth. Journey of the Middle-earth doesn't, I mean, I know that it's kind of in that trilogy. It's just not as good as the other two by far. It's fine. It's a good game, but it's paled for me. I haven't played it, and I probably won't ever play it again. I liked it fine, but... Oh, wait. You're saying Hunt for the Ring is one of that trilogy, too. Well, I've not played that one. I don't know that I would consider that as part... Just because they're from the same company and they're in the same universe, Lord of the Rings, doesn't... I don't know if I'd put them as a series of games. I mean, you could, sure, but I wouldn't. No one is getting fired from the Dice Tower. What are the requirements to enter Board Game Breakfast? You need to send me an audition video at tom@dicetower.com. It needs to be 2 minutes or less. I've not tried Star Trek Conflict yet. I do have it, though. What are my biggest regrets in terms of this channel? Any mistakes, things you'd wish you had done differently? That's a good question. I don't know that... Regrets are regrets, right? I mean, you go back, oh, I wish I had changed things, but it's the butterfly effect. If I had done something differently, maybe something would be different now. I mean, we made lots of stupid mistakes in various things. I've said things that I had to take back or, you know, but... I don't know. I don't know that I would go back and fix it because it's the journey that got us to where we're at now. Do I have regrets? Sure. Nothing major. It's not like I have a major regret like, man, I wish I never done such and such. I never thought I would be here. I never thought I would be in this position. It's a really nice thing. It's really cool. It's a fun job. I tell people all the time that I think I'm one of the few people who gets up every Monday morning and I'm excited to go in. Weekends are great. I mean, I like weekends. I like taking time off, but I'm excited to come in Monday. I like what I do a lot. And my days never go by slowly. It's more like, oh my goodness, it's already 5. I guess I got to go home. And don't get me wrong, there's lots of negative things about the job. There's lots of, a lot of work involved and sometimes very stressful days. But overall, it's something I enjoy. So I would be afraid to go back and do something differently because it might mess this up. And this happens in life too. Are there things I could do differently? There are so many things I'm like, man, if I could go back. And without getting too personal, there's been some major things. There's one thing in particular that affected me as a young man. I know I'm not an old man now, but 20 years ago, I made a specific decision that I highly regretted at the time. It was something stupid that I did. It was, at the time I thought it was a good idea. It turned out to be a very bad idea, and it changed my life dramatically. And it directly led me going to Korea. No, it's not like some secret crime in my past. It wasn't any of that. It was just something, it was just a whole thing, and I was like, ah. And because of this whole thing, I went to Korea. If I could go back in time and go to that thing and not have done it, I probably would, I think, except then I wouldn't have gone to Korea likely. And not having gone to Korea would have changed my life tremendously. Korea was amazing. So even though we have mistakes and things that happen to us, those mistakes are just part of the tapestry of our lives. Who is the tapestry? Does he have it? No, I don't have tapestry. But because these things are part of the tapestry and part of the bigger pictures, sure, I can regret them. And I mean, there are things in life that like, oh man, I wish I could go back and undo that thing I said to so-and-so. Well, sure. But again, these things are done and we move on with them. And I know that people have great regrets. Well, think of it this way. Again, I guess I'm going more deeper philosophical here, but with my son, Jack, who passed away. When he first got, I can look at a million things that we did during my wife's pregnancy there, and I could say, but if we had done this, maybe he wouldn't have died. If only we had. First of all, in that way lies madness. It really does. But secondly, I believe all things work together for good, and I'm a Christian, so there is that. But also, these mistakes, they are things and errors that we make contribute to the final product. Now, I suppose if you make a whole pile of errors and it comes out poorly, but I would hope that in life, as I make these errors and mistakes, that I can fix them and work through them and learn from them. So, back here, things I wish I'd done differently. Sure, I suppose, on the Dice Tower, things I wish I'd done differently. There are several things that if I go back, I would probably do that differently. I would. I've announced things and I'm like, man, I should have made that announcement differently. I should have done this differently. But you know what? We're at where we are now. I guess I didn't mean that to get so, this happens so often in Q&As. Alrighty. Butterscotch versus key lime pie. I gotta say, it's a really close race. That was an amazing butterscotch pie. Let's see here. Are you reviewing Marvel Legendary Revelations? Not yet. We don't have it yet. Once we get it, we will do it. Could you bring Reavers and Midgard to Midgard for an Epic Champions Reavers competition? Well, I know we're playing Champions Midgard there. I don't know if we'll play Reavers. Maybe it will be there by the time, and I don't have to carry it because it is a heavy game. I think we're going to play that one live tomorrow, maybe? Have I read Anne of Green Gables? I have. And I watched the movies, which I enjoyed a lot. I liked Anne of Green Gables, but I liked the sequel better. My family's thinking of going to Origins next year. How does it compare to Gen Con, and is there more gaming like at Dice Tower Con? There's definitely more gaming, but it's not like Dice Tower Con or Board Game Geek Con or Geekway to the West. Those cons are like gaming. So if you said, what cons have the most gaming? Well, Dice Tower Retreat. But after Dice Tower Retreat, then Dice Tower Cruise, Dice Tower East, West, the Board Game Geek Con, Geekway to the West, and there's other smaller cons across America that have this high concentration of gaming. Origins has a lot of gaming, and of the quote-unquote big cons, it has the most. It still doesn't have as much gaming as the smaller cons do because there's a lot of other things going on in events. The more events you have, the less gaming there is. And then at Gen Con, there's still tons of gaming at Gen Con, but it's just not as easy to get into. It's easier at Origins, but even easier at a smaller con. Are you still doing the Hollywood Cool Stuff meetups? I don't go there every time, although this past Saturday I did go there. I went, not for the whole time, just for like 4 or 5 hours, but we went and played. How many games do you get to play in one day? As many as I can. And do you get to play your favorites ever with all that you have to play? Sometimes. Would you say Disney Villainous is a gateway level game? I would. Is Zooloretto still a good game? Or maybe showing its age? Oh, it's definitely still a good game. Almost 3/4 through the year? Are we? No, wait. We still have the rest of August and September to go through. So, ask me at the end of a year how it's been for the Dice Tower. I figure you're into math, a former math teacher even, I am. Do you ever get to feel that because of that you like different games than other people? If so, where does it show? Not particularly. I like math, but lots of people who aren't math teachers like math. People who like math and complex math will probably like some games more than others, but another math teacher, me, could have very different tastes. You could be a math teacher and be like, I just want to play games where I chuck dice and don't care. That's very possible. When you meet people at conventions, do you find it okay if they call you Tom, or do you prefer Mr. Vassal? Tom is fine. Although, we joke about this a lot because when people meet me at a con, it's usually Tom Vassal, because that's how I introduce myself. I say it on the videos all the time. Hey, I'm Tom Vassal. And kids especially will come to me like, hello, Tom Vassal. Because to them, my name is one word, Tom Vassal. I say that. Hi, I'm Tom Vassal. At the end of videos, I'm Tom Vassal. I say that a lot. So kids who watch only videos will say that. At home here, everyone calls me Tom. I think a few people call me Vassal occasionally, but most people call me Tom. Kids in the neighborhood and kids at church, I'm not like a draconian about it, but if I taught class or work with kids, I always have them call me Mr. Vassal for kids, because that's what I do with my kids. All my kids, you call someone Mr. or Mrs. by their last name, unless they tell you otherwise in a special occasion type thing. You know, oh, this person insists that they call me Dale. Well, then you call him Dale. But everyone else, you call Mr. or Mrs. You show respect. So if I'm teaching kids and all, I make them call me Mr. Vassal for that same reason. I always find it humorous though whenever I taught high school, and this happens every year I taught high school. The same thing happened. The seniors would come up to me and go, Mr. Vassal, as soon as we graduate, we're gonna call you Tom. Ha 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 ha. All right, fine. I figured that would happen. You know, I'm like, you go ahead and do that. So they graduate, they come up to me, they're like, hey Tom, ha ha ha. We're all saying Tom. And then the next time they meet me, they call me Mr. Vassal. And I've met some of them a decade later, and they still call me Mr. Vassal, because that's what you're going to call your teachers. If I met my teachers now, I would still call them Mr. or Mrs. whatever, or Doctor or whatever, because that's just how it is. You can't undo that, I think. I mean, I'm sure it's possible in some situations, and I don't even know how we got onto this whole thing. So, have you seen the new Zelda game? No, I didn't know there was a new Zelda game. Is there a sequel to Breath of the Wild? Because that would be awesome. Do you prefer the cartoony look or the more grown-up look of Link? Probably the more realistic one, I guess. But it's not that big of a deal. I really like the way Breath of the Wild looked. That's my favorite one. What's my favorite thing about Gen Con this year? The question I'm asked millions of times, and that is the people I met. Which would you find more enjoyable, playing a bad game with best friends or playing a fantastic game with strangers or unpleasant people? Well, that's very different, okay? I'd rather play a bad game with my best friends, probably, but playing a fantastic game with strangers is fine. Unpleasant people, it's not. Strangers, I have no problem playing a game with, because by the time the game is done, we're no longer strangers. Do you still play Pokemon Go? I do not really. Kind of tied in your comments on Monopoly, have you ever gone back and tried games you didn't like with a different group or after an extended time to see if your feelings have changed? Not normally. If I don't like a game, I might go back and play it. If a lot of people rail on me and say you really should try it, my friends, whatever, sometimes that will happen. But for the most part, no. Life's too short for me to keep trying old games I did not like. So why would I go back and try them again? I'd rather just play new stuff. You have any information about Lighthouse Run, which I believe is getting rethemed into a pirate-style game? I'm almost positive it is being rethemed into a Viking game. If I'm correct on that from Amigo, I thought for sure they said Viking, unless they've changed it and I don't know. How does an embargo work? Do you sign a legal document, or is it just a request from the publisher? Well, it's a request from the publisher. I've only signed a legal document once in this regard, and that was with some early stuff that I saw from Fantasy Flight way back in the day. This was like a decade ago. Nowadays, an NDA is more of a, hey, please don't talk about the game until this certain date. I don't sign a document, but I put my word on the line so that these publishers know that I won't break embargo. I don't think I've ever broken embargo in this particular case. There are 2 times where it turned out to be funny. Once, well, one was funny, the other was not. The one that was funny was Stephen Bonnegar gave us an interview on Merchants of Venus, and he said you could release this at midnight. Well, I did. I just released it at a different midnight than he had expected to. Well, he was over in Germany at the time, and I released it at my midnight, not his midnight. It wasn't a big deal. But he was like, what? That was earlier than I thought. The other was Descent 2nd Edition. I had an early copy of Descent 2nd Edition. They asked me not to show it. I didn't. But I accidentally left it in the background of a few review videos. Now, back then, my videos were not 1080p. They were a lower quality. So I put it in the back. It was just in the background on the shelf. I didn't even think anything about it. But people saw it, blew it up, looked at it. I got a personal call from Christian Peterson. I apologized dramatically. And it was no big deal because I didn't show anything else about the game. It wasn't like I had busted out and showed stuff. But basically, an embargo, I think, would work like this. Let's say Jamie Stegmeyer sent a game and said, please don't talk about it till such and such a date. And then I did and broke it. Do you think I would ever see a game from him again? And or any other publisher who found out about it? Just for that one scoop, is that worth your honor? I don't think so. So embargoes will work that way usually. Have you got the Board Game Geek Quacks pieces? Yes. Do you ever feel bad about spending more on bling than a game? I don't know. I don't. If I really like a game, I have no problem spending to upgrade that game and making it really awesome. Do you think there is a game that will be announced days before the spiel, like Blackout Hong Kong last year? Oh, that's why this is moving around. Maybe, but I don't know of any. In movies and video games, embargoes are seen as a sign the product is bad. Why doesn't this seem to be the case in board games? No, that's not quite the same thing. There's embargoes all the time on TV shows and movies, and it's not looked at as a bad thing. They'll say, reviewers, you can't write about this, or you can write on a certain date, and then the reviewers do. What you're talking about here is when they don't let the reviewers come in and see a movie. You have to wait till the movie's released to the general public, and then the reviewers can write the reviews. That generally means the movie's not that good, or at least maybe the movie's fine or whatever, but they know reviewers won't like it. But if a lot of times I'll read reviewers and they'll say, well, I couldn't talk about this till now, and it's a great TV series or movies, and it had an embargo on it. That's not, with video games, it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, when these journalists work with the video game companies, they'll tell them when they can talk about the game. I don't think that's looked at as a bad thing at all. You don't like cats? You are a monster. Maybe. How has your gaming taste changed over the last decade or so? That's a hard question to answer in a very quick time. I don't know that I can. I know that it's changed, and I know this because I just played a game that is 10 years old. And I said, you know what, I just don't like this game like I did 10 years ago. But that's partially because my tastes have changed and partially because gaming scene in general has changed. Do you still have no interest in playing Kingdom Death? Well, I'm not going out of my way to trying it out. I mean, I probably would, but as I said in the past, A, I never got a copy of it. No big deal. I'm just not going to go hunt down a copy of it. B, if I did get a copy, I'd have to put together all the miniatures. And then C, the theme of it doesn't really interest me. If someone brought it and it was put together and we had a chance to play it, sure. To be clear, I'm not asking anyone to do that. I'm just explaining why it hasn't been reviewed. Also, it's several years old at this point. Has a very big fan base for sure, but I'm not too worried about it. Do you review games as they come, or do you tend to review the games you're personally excited about first? Oh, the ones we're excited about first. I mean, I try to review more than just that, right? And you'll notice this week, and I try to do it when I make the schedule for this week, and this always happens. Each day, there's one game that's a bigger game, right? But then I always try to review a smaller game that people won't talk about. So like, I got a couple games, I can see my pile of reviews over there. I got a couple games that are small and tiny and probably won't get that many views, but I don't care. I want to mix those in with the bigger reviews. Isn't there Lord of the Rings Confrontation? Am I making this up? No, the Lord of the Rings Confrontation is the 2-player game from Cosmos. That Fantasy Flight later on made a bigger game. It's basically Stratego, but with asymmetricalness involved with it. It's a really neat game. What percentage of game designers do you think can live from their work designing games? Well, if we think that there's 4,000 games come out over the past year, I don't know, it's a really small percentage. We were talking about this the other day, like how many, I used to say it's less than 10 designers that are making a full-time living from designing games, but I think the number is higher now, maybe between 20 and 30. Still, that's not that many, right? And many of those who are doing it work for a company full-time, and so, or you've released one game that's super popular. Am I excited for the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game? I am. What nostalgic pop culture theme would you love to see that either hasn't been done or hasn't been done well yet? My vote is G.I. Joe. Oh yes, I would love to see a G.I. Joe game. Followed by He-Man. Maybe. I don't know that He-Man has aged as well. Well, I don't know that G.I. Joe's aged well either. In fact, I know it hasn't, but I don't know. I loved G.I. Joe as a kid. He-Man I thought was okay. The G.I. Joe toys were better. They could rotate at all the things. He-Man just could do this. So the G.I. Joe toys were way cooler than the He-Man toys. Although I was messing with, was it Netflix last night, and I saw the He-Man movie, and I was like, oh yeah, let's scan through this. Oh my word. I had forgotten how bad that movie, I mean, that movie is really bad. I love Brandon Sanderson's books. I think you would love the Cradle series by Will White, is that? All right. The rulebook of Hunt for the Ring has specific instructions on how to set up War of the Ring depending on the outcome of the game. Cool. I did not know that. That's neat. People regret what they didn't do, not what they did do, says Trevin. Oh, sure, I guess. But I don't know that I don't even know that we can say that. Like, I didn't learn to play the trumpet as well as I could have. Well, okay. I don't know. Again, you're going to go through lives with different regrets, but all the decisions that you made point you to where you are now. Do you ever have bad days at work? I guess. But I'll tell you what, my worst days here at Dice Tower are better than most other jobs I've ever had, so. Is there a way to volunteer for the Dice Tower? Sure, but if you ever do want to volunteer for the Dice Tower, I always want people to email me kind of and say, I would like to do this for the Dice Tower, because it's when people email me, they're like, hey, I would like to help out with Dice Tower, and I'm like, you know, I don't have a list of these are things that you can volunteer for laying around. Dice Tower Retreat specifically, I don't know that there's a way to volunteer for that really. I got enough people helping out and running it as it is, and it's mostly just people getting together playing games. Yes, I like dogs. I'm making my own crokinole board from oak and maple. Have you ever crafted a game, whether it be woodworking or other media? No. Well, I mean, I guess I put some together in the past. Print and play, though, is way out of my comfort zone, and woodworking is not something I'm good at. What were my favorite cosplays at Gen Con? You know, I didn't see as many this year. I saw a few Space Marines and stuff. I always think that's cool. But, you know, I didn't really pay attention to that this year. I guess my kids took a video of the parade, but I haven't seen it yet. Now, I've seen a lot of people comparing Unmatched and the Funko game. Do you think those are worth comparing? Well, sure. They're very, very similar in some regards, and they're very, very different in others. Will we do a comparison video? Maybe at some point. But suffice to say, I like them both a lot. Am I still involved in youth ministry at all? Not at the moment. I work with kids at our church. I work in the Awana program. I'm the chairman of deacons at our church, which deacon is servant. So we get, just help get as much stuff done as possible. I'm on the praise team, the music team on Sunday mornings. And if something needs to be done, I do it. But I work with the kids more than I work with youth. When am I going to review U-Boot? Well, I need to play it first. I still not played a full game of it because the rule book is that in depth. We tried to play it at our game store, and it was just so noisy that I didn't feel like it was going to be a good experience. So we're going to set it up and play it at some point. It just hasn't happened yet. We won't be able to have a copy of Reavers, hence the question. I'm the librarian of the con. Well, make sure you email me about that like the week before the con, and I'll make sure to try to add the copy of it to our luggage den. But I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I'll try to bring it. It does seem like it would make sense. When does Melody head back to college? 2 weeks. I'm respectfully not a person of faith, but I'm genuinely curious how your faith informs your work with the Dice Tower. How do you strike a balance with your faith and the secular board game community? Well, this is another one of those super long answers that I'm going to try not to. But essentially, my faith in God affects every aspect of my life. And I believe that we should be pleasant and kind to everyone. So I try to be. Obviously, I fail at that a lot. And sometimes the people on the internet say Tom was a jerk, and I don't mean to be. I try not to have a beef with anybody, and I think we can respectfully disagree. But, it does affect how I do it because board gaming is not first in my life. It is something that is my job, and it's important to me, but it comes way behind my faith and way behind my family. It's probably third then after that. Or my friends, I guess, would be before that too. I really wish I could go to Dice Retreat, but I can't spend $800 to stay at a hotel 40 miles from my house. But that means you're not part of the board game meetup group because I posted something in there for people who live in the area, so check that out. Hey Tom, love your top 10s done at the live shows. I was wondering why you've been switching to audio only for most of the live shows with Essen and Origins. Well, we didn't do a live show at Origins this year, but the reason we've been doing audio is for a couple reasons. One, everyone complained about the video quality at these other conventions. But the main reason is because we don't have many traveling cameras now. The cameras were getting beat up, and we had to replace a couple cameras just from traveling. That's very expensive. So we have these cameras set up in the studio. I want to leave them set up in the studio. So as time goes by, we'll probably get better ways to record things. We might try to record the show at Essen this year on video if possible. But it's really difficult to record the shows with video and audio and get them to both turn out to be well unless you have access to the audio system there, which we often don't. So because we don't have access to that, it doesn't work out always super well. Am I a turn two-turn thinker or a 3 steps ahead thinker? I don't quite understand that, but I think what you mean, if I'm guessing properly, do I think about stuff now? Like, what do I do best now, or do I try to think several steps ahead? I try to think several steps ahead, but I often fail at that. It depends how many turns the game is. Oh, well, that's very nice of you to say that the live show is good at Gen Con. I always worry that our shows there aren't that good. No one says boss. Z calls me boss sometimes, but I think it's usually just being silly. My kids call me Mr. Vassal. No, my kids call me Dad. No, Daddy or Dad. Oh, no, I'm sorry. My second daughter, Amy, calls me Father. Just like that, too. Do your kids dislike having a V last name because you're always last in everything? Speaking from experience, says Cameron Vaughn. I don't know. I don't know if that's ever come up. It doesn't, because we homeschool them, they don't deal with that at school, right? It happens in some things, but when I was a kid, yeah, I was not always pleased about being last, but sometimes I was glad to be last at things too. In alphabetical. And then there was always, when I went to college, there was always these teachers who thought they were being super hip by doing things in reverse. You know, we're going to start, and then I was first, you know, to go. And they would do that when it was time to do presentations. We'll go in reverse for this. Like, really? Now you go in reverse? The day I procrastinated? When I did my classes, I tried to do them randomly when I was a teacher for that reason, but it was not that big of a deal. If you had to visit an alien race from Cosmic Encounter, which would it be? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at them all. Maybe love? Am I familiar with the auto battler video game genre? I am not at all. Do you also like the more realistic look of Sonic? Did they redo it? I don't know. I didn't hate the Sonic the Hedgehog like everyone else did. I mean, I thought the movie looked dumb, but I didn't hate it. I just didn't care. For that matter, I didn't care about the Cats trailer that came out recently. Everyone was screaming about that. I don't know that I would go watch the Cats movie. I like the music, but I wasn't creeped out by it, but I also wasn't like enamored with it either. They did announce Breath of the Wild 2. Yay. What theme do you think would make a good team versus team game? 2 versus 2 or more? There's a little tennis? I don't know. We played a tennis game actually recently. 2 versus 2. That'd be a good top 10, I think. Hi, have you any update on cool stuff delivering to or even being at Dice Tower Retreat? You know, I talked to them about that, and I haven't followed up on that, so we'll figure that out. Email me about that so I can make sure I talk to them about it. Is there a game you really, really, really despise? Many. Go check out my 1 ratings. Oh, Otter, thank you. Soon time for Spiel, says Otter. See you guys there. Yeah, I can't wait. But actually, let me rephrase that. I can wait. Yeah, I think it's hilarious that on Board Game Geek, there's people saying, the top games I'm looking forward to at the Spiel, and the Spiel preview went live, and people were already excited about that. I'm thinking, we just finished Gen Con. I said this before, and I'll say it again. This cult of the future astounds me sometimes. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's part of the Dice Tower's business, right? But at the same time, we came home with all these really awesome games from Gen Con that I'm in the middle of playing. Me and Melody, we went and played several of them on Saturday. They're fun. And yet people are like, oh yeah, they're out. What's next? It's like, calm down, everybody. There's so many games that are out right now. Embargoes are only bad if they go past the release date. If an embargo goes past the release date, then it's not really an embargo, right? You can't tell me I can do a review. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're talking about the movie thing, right? You mean up to the release date, because once the release date comes, you can't stop me from doing an embargo. If it's out everywhere, you can't tell me I can't do a review on it. Do you think a game like Battlestar Galactica would get a reprint based on its popularity, or has it been too long since the show that they wouldn't invest? That's a good question. I don't know what they're planning to do with Battlestar Galactica. It has been a while since the show, so it doesn't have the popularity it did once, obviously. I mean, you might think it does, it just doesn't. Everything dies down. Nostalgic games can do well, but don't often. Hot new properties are where it's at. My Marvel Legendary Collection has filled 2 of the Hobby Lobby wooden case and has become very cumbersome. Yep, I feel you. How do you transfer your Legendary Collection to a game night in 2 Hobby Lobby wooden containers? Hey, Tom, what do you think of a second edition of Star Wars LCG? They actually did it. It was called Wars. It came out from Decipher. It was the exact same game, basically, except they had 5 factions instead of 2, I think. And it was based on a generic thing. And you know what? It's just not a very strong game without the Star Wars license. Do you still think the board game hobby is on the rise? Well, yes. Knowing FFG, there will be a Descent 3rd edition eventually. What would that look like in your opinion? I think it would be very app-motivated, like the Lord of the Rings Middle-earth game. Have you ever tried an 18XX game? The only one I've played that I know of is 18EZ, which is a beginner game. I've watched them. I know enough about them to understand the system of it. There were some guys who played one at the meetup I just went to that took them 6.5 hours, which is fantastic. They all seem to have a fantastic time playing it. But I don't think that's for me anymore. Tom, do you ever use personal player playmats on top of your game tables? Usually only if the game it's part of the game, like there's a game board involved with it. Hi, Tom. I'm a huge fan. I need some help. I live in Macedonia, which basically has no board game stores, and most stores don't ship here. So do you have any suggestions on what I should do? I really don't. But maybe I'm highlighting this comment because maybe someone else can help you. There's got to be a store that can ship to Macedonia, and if not, maybe you can find someone who's willing to, you know, for a cost, ship the games to you. You really enjoyed Jaipur in one of your old reviews. Is this still the case? Yes, I'm looking forward to trying the new version of it at some point. Star Wars Imperial Assault is now done. Do you expect second edition to be announced by Fantasy Flight in 2021? I don't know. I'm going to say no. Because they did second edition of X-Wing, but they didn't there was no break really. They went right from 1 into 2. Do you think second edition's reprint should be modified or be more like the original game? It depends. Sometimes the second edition really changes the game up and is dramatically better. Rum and Bones is a good example of this. I like the first, but man, the second was so much better. But sometimes the original game's fine, so just do some tweaks. It all depends on the original game, I suppose. Is Thunderstone Quest so streamlined and cleaned up that it will be the standard for longer than either the first 2 games combined? I don't know what that means. It's not, I mean, it's streamlined, but it's not that streamlined. They added a whole bunch of extra stuff. So I think if you just played Thunderstone, the original one, it was faster. I just like the more in-depth stuff of Thunderstone Quest. What do you think of the new Board Game Geek logo? Hey, it took this long for somebody to get to that question? It's fine. I like the new colors. The purple and orange, I like those a lot. The new logo it's not what I would pick, but I didn't pick it, so who cares? I don't know. People have their own logos. My favorite logo, the Dice Tower. My second favorite logo, this one right here, the Jack Vassar Memorial Fund behind me. Actually, I might like this one even better. That's such a great, simple logo. I really like it. But I also don't lose any sleep over when someone changes their logo. I don't regret you not learning the trumpet. Oh yeah, you would be seeing a lot of that in videos. Maybe I would do a trumpet playoff to the game at the end, right? Do you get to read for enjoyment? I don't know if there's any other way to read. No, I guess I do read for work. I read all the time. I love reading. Give me some downtime, I will read. I was reading yesterday. I was reading some short time travel stories. And have you ever been down to the South Pacific? No. Those are two very different questions, I guess. Do you think Funkoverse is too similar to Wildlands to own both? No, they're different. Wildlands is, they're just very different games. I'll tell you what though, this genre, that's 3 solid games in the same genre. I think it's interesting though, like trick taking, and this always happens, and this always is fascinating to me. There is so many worker placement games. There are so many trick taking games. There are so many area control games. There's so many drafting games, right? And then when a genre or a mechanic that there's not a lot of gets like 2 or 3, people are like, oh, there's so many. This happened with legacy games. Like they announced the second legacy game, people are like, there's so many legacy games. There was like 3. So the same thing here now. These little light tactical 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2 games. You know, I've been sitting on Heroescape forever now, but now we got 3. We got Wildlands and Funkoverse and Unmatched. That's great, but there's still only 3 of them. Or maybe there might be 1 or 2 more that I'm not coming to mind, but there's still not a ton of them. That's not a lot. Now, you might only want to own 1, and that's fine. I just think it's always weird that people get into this. There's so many of this game. I'm like, no, not really. I'm learning woodworking as an extra hobby, along with board games and game design. If I made something for you guys, where do I send it? Email me, and I'll let you know. Tom@dicetower.com. Why no opening closing music at Gen Con or PAX? Oh, I guess you mean PAX as in PAX. For your live shows? Because that was just a misstep on my part. I didn't tell Roy to have the music ready. I didn't even think about playing the live music at the show. We'll fix that for next year. I know a lot of people keep asking about Marvel. Marvel Champions is Marvel. Hang on a second. Marvel Champions. That's the card game. Okay. I will talk about the card game when I get it. We'll review it. Quick picks. I liked it, but I want to play it some more before I give a full review on it. So that's my quick thoughts on it, I guess. Are you involved with youth ministry? No, I work with kids. No, what in that specific thing? In churches, usually when they say youth ministry, they mean teenagers, and kids are preteens. You know, the 12 and under. That's who I work with, 12 and under. The teens is what is youth ministry. I can see how that's confusing. Have you started selling tickets to Dice Tower West yet? No. You can go to Dice Tower West and see they're going live, I believe, August 26th. Trying to find a game for my fiance would be a good horror-themed game that doesn't have a lot of complexity. Wow, Horrified. This just came out. I believe you can find it at Target. Fantastic game. I know you touched on this in your review, but Towers of Arcanos needs at least 2 more rounds. Amazing game, but so fast. I'll tell you what, the guys who designed this game are making a dungeon crawler, which looks really neat. Have you played Detective City of Angels? Who from the Dice Tower will do the review? I'm not actually sure who's going to do the review yet. It might be Z, it might be me. One of the 2 of us. I'm looking at getting better at teaching games. Any suggestions on the best way to organize game explanation? When you teach a game, do you follow the layout of the rulebook or do you just do it by feel? I follow the layout of the rulebook, but sometimes I have to read really fast and jump back and forth. So that's what I do. I just realized it's 10:59. I got to end this because it's that time. You know, we gotta jump into. I got a review we got to work on here. Me and Sam are about to record a Miami Dice, and then I got a few other reviews, and then I got a meeting of great excitement. But I can't really talk about that yet. But it's going to be a good month. And then I have more reviews to do today, later on today. Then tomorrow we'll be doing some live testing. I can't tell you exactly what games we're going to play, but Reavers of Midgard seems like it will be on the list. Also, I want to continue playing Clank Legacy. We started that, so I would like to continue some more games of that. It's a good week. Lots of things to go through. The only bad thing about this week is Thursday I got to go to the dentist to get a tooth pulled. Yay. But I'm going to have my daughter record me before and after because I want to see how loopy being knocked out makes me. Live stuff tomorrow. I said there's live streaming. Thursday, board game breakfast and another top 10 list. And that's what we got scheduled for this week. So, alrighty. Well, that's it. Did I miss anything here that I need to talk there? Oh, thank you, Otter. Are you still on a diet? No candy? Well, I'm not eating no candy. I'm eating less candy, but this week's going to be a very tight buckling the belt week, even if I don't wear belts anymore. So that is that. So until next time, I'm Tom Vassell, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. I'll see y'all later. Alrighty, it's time once again for ice cream has come in against the purple horde. Oh my goodness, look how many there is. Well, the horde lost last time, Bob. So I don't think we want to see them lose again. Otherwise, the odds are going to have to be changed. Well, here we go. Looks like we have a dice stat. It's not going to fit half the dice. Oh, looks like some weight problems are occurring. Oh my, that is a good amount of the dice. Will the 20s side it fit through? Yes. Alrighty, well, the other weight people are going to have to go last. Once again, the new Queensberry rules are in effect, so there is that. So in this case, we're going to be rolling I think 400 dice. Well, what's happened here, Bob? So let me explain it. We're going to use the dice, but this time there's going to be skill in how they're thrown. The dice have worked out, and the ice cream team has been accused of using dice steroids, so they're going to be testing that. So the testing is going to happen first, but the way that the new rules are going to work is going to change pretty much the entire game. So first, the rule on stacking. The rule on stacking is the dice can be stacked before they enter the dice tower. When this happens,